Hello, Jim.
Steve, how you doing?
Not too bad. Yeah, I was listening to that on the radio. I didn't see it actually on TV about the press conference that was given, and it's always entertaining to see what some of the ATF agents or the FBI agents are going to say, how they say it, the implication of it, the connotations used.
It's not very accurate, I don't know.
Well, number one, you know, I don't, like yesterday, I mean, like we were talking, how they gave the information out that guys here had a gun battle with the sheriff's department in '87. I mean,
well, that's not right.
You mean to tell me these agencies, with all the evidences, all the different equipment at hand and everything else, they can't get the facts together before they go national, international?
Well, they should.
I mean, well, that sounds nice, you telling me that they should, but you're in a position where you know, I'm cut off. I can't talk to anybody but yourself. So you can sympathize with me and say nice things to me like this, but when it keeps on coming out on the TV and like what was said about David in this conference earlier today, well, he's miraculously recovering, and then, of course, all the laughter. If you got to see what you guys did to him, I did. I thought he would have been dead within hours of that. He was laying on the floor. We dragged him along. He's never moved from that place.
Well, I know
That's the truth.
I know that.
And when you showed concern because you thought, like yourself, as did maybe Gary and Henry, that he would die. And I tell you the truth, we thought more than likely originally he would.
I'm glad he's dead.
Well, yeah, I am too, but the you know, it's the way it was stated even to the press, like, you know, it's a sarcasm to his, you know, with the Lamb and the 7 seals. Only the Lamb can open up the 7 seals, and then he's never claimed to be Jesus Christ. He never said he was.
I agree.
He did state that only the Lamb can open the 7 seals, and he offers to show people all throughout the Scriptures the 7 seals.
Right. Steve and I know that. And the only thing that they...
That way, Jim, God says who this person is. You see what I'm saying?
I understand.
But I mean, well, do you have any kind of, probably no influence, but you probably can at least communicate. What about these conferences?
I promise that I will, and let me tell you that what we have communicated up there, Henry and I, is that, and I'm sorry, and I apologize for that comment on the TV that was made that way. If that man made it, it shouldn't have been done that way. But what we have passed up, okay, I want you to know.
Okay.
And that was that Sunday, David was hurting, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That was Sunday evening. You remember?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But it's these kind of sarcastic comments, the way they're, put out.
I think that was very inappropriate for them to do that, and I will pass that up, and I think it is inappropriate.
I mean, this is really, I really tell you the truth, I'm really teed off. I hate to see how this country of America has digressed, and your type of agencies are one of the biggest causes for it. Some of you young guys like yourselves, you have a job, you've become a professional in an area. At the same time, there is getting to be a big brother. You're part of it. You do your job right, you may have a family and so forth, but there's still a vigilance of freedom that needs to be kept up. Read the writings and the statements of people like Abraham Lincoln or Jefferson or Madison. The great principles laid down so things that are happening now that which you are more a part of than anybody would never take place. Like, I can't talk to the outside world. You've taken care of that, your kind of people. The press are so far back that you guys could come and blow us away, and you could give any kind of a story you wanted. But I don't care if you... Let me tell you something, Jim. I really don't care if you did or didn't in the first place. The point being, there is a God that you and I stand before, whether you and I believe it or not. And one day, all of us give an account. And I mean, this group does fear God first over man.
I believe that.
I know you believe that.
I know that.
But, it's starting to become annoying after all these days of sitting here. When I see this kind of stuff, when you hear it on the radio, I mean, I've known for years what's been happening. No, listen to me, please. I just want to get something off my chest because, after a while it gets very annoying. For years and years, as a young person, I was into the study of history because one does not want to repeat the mistakes of others. I've always wanted to see why there was a First World War, why a Second World War. So in taking a lot of history classes through high school and so forth, many questions were raised but few answered. And the answers that were given never really made a lot of sense. There was not a lot of logic or sense to those answers. Then I started hearing about a group called the Council on Foreign Relations, a group called the Trilateral Commission.
I've heard of that.
I know, the Illuminati. Come to find out they're real organizations with the Rockefellers and all these great merchants behind all of these politicians only being puppets. But your agency and all those are part of that whole thing. Taking away the freedoms of Americans, using innuendos and all sorts of the ways to go about doing it. More legislation, more regulations, more laws, so that ultimately a person has no freedoms. So taxed to death that you never have a choice with the hard-earned money you make to choose to where it should be paid.
Yeah.
I mean, think of this whole thing. But here you're part of an agency, a part of the government that has done some of the most... I saw that Gun Owners of America, that video. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever got to view that one that talks about your agency, how you're lawbreakers, and what you did to those 2 policemen that were good cops all their life, all those 20 years out in New Jersey.
Right.
I mean, if that doesn't tee off an American that's into freedom, and I'm for your freedom also, for your freedoms of choice.
Right.
But what you guys have already showed me, what you did with the Weber case, I mean, that already bothered me, and here now I'm involved in something like this.
Yeah.
Whatever happens to me, I hope that you have yourself right with God. Mm-hmm. That you're not part of an organization or part of something that, I mean, God condemns that kind of thing. You might think he condemns a lot of things we're doing from what you've heard about us, but you've gotten to hear a lot of things out of the mouth of David here. Yeah. And you go find your greatest theologian in the world. If there's some truth to that Bible, I think you said your background was Catholic?
Well, when I was a little boy, and then now I'm a Christian.
Whatever that means, I mean, I'm not a Christian. I've always wanted to be a Christian, but a Christian is something I have not seen in my whole lifetime. But anyway, aside from that, but I'm again concerned about what's going on. All my years in this country of America, I've always loved the Constitution, the statements of men like Abraham Lincoln and Jefferson, some of these men. But this country is no longer what it was then. Now there's men that have very powerful men that those guys that do get into office, I mean, when you look at someone like Bush and Clinton, both associated to the Trilateral Commission, who are you voting for? Just like in the 80s, you had, what's his name, Anderson and Carter being the first member, the first one to become president in 76, handpicked by Rockefeller in 73. Every cabinet member belonged to the Trilateral Commission. What on earth is this? What's happened to this country? But you don't read about it in the press. Is it controlled is the question? Well, how come you don't get a broader view of things? Yeah. And those men that are on these talk shows even, right away, if there's someone in there that starts speaking logic or sense, or if they raise a question about your agency or anything else, who's watching the watchdog? Right. You understand? Who's watching the watchdog? Right away, they get usually taken off or their time is out. I mean, I've watched this all my life. Right. I've always considered myself to be a conservative, someone who is not into taxes, who's into the freedom of people so that they can express themselves, they can create, they can do, as long as they're not hurting their fellow man, they're doing the best. But I mean, that's not the way this country is degenerating to, and this is what the Bible shows in advance. But me watching this, like you hear this on the radio and so forth, here we go again. But maybe, if we're right, what we're telling you through the Bible, what David's showing you, there's going to be a one last time. People are going to be answering. There's going to be someone that's going to open up a book that has to do with your eternal salvation, my eternal salvation. If it's not him, it's going to be somebody. And I could give you enough chapters of the Old Testament. It talks about a man that comes in the final days to one salvation. And they can't controvert it. That's what all these proud of it. Totally unaware. Because I've met with them myself, and they're quite...
Thanks, Steve, with you for those ministers. I mean, you're a pretty bright guy, and
some have said I can speak and this, that. There's many that can speak 10 times. A being that has awareness, that experience good things, bad things. We all do. There's something wrong with a being that does not want that. However, why do we have to die? Why is there the problems that there are with and beyond? Life has been one of looking for the truth of my own awareness, my own being and direction. More, trying to help others see the same thing if they have an honesty of heart.
And I talked about this morning before he left.
If the knowledge is only air, if it's only words in the air by a little culty group, I mean, so what? I don't want to... I want to try to be honest with you. I don't want to play... I don't know... I've seen so many men like Gonzalez. From the beginning, I thought he was just... I didn't think he was honest, but I hope that hold nothing against the man. In fact, I still like the guy. I really do.
Well, I can see... I can appreciate...
Well, no, that part doesn't, because, I can understand that situation. No, that's why I say that's not a problem. That have good minds, that are raising questions, basic questions with human freedom and realities with the Constitution, like why you guys did. They've never had harm from us. Yeah. But why didn't they come and serve him with... There is no question
Right.
If you were on the ground or in an airplane watching, you will know for a fact you guys start firing on us.
Well, that needs to come out. You need
Yeah,
to bring...
what about Weaver? What's happening with the Weaver tour? Let me see how you guys do and what kind of freedom.
Weaver. He walked out of there.
Wasn't it the boy?
That was a tragedy.
Yeah, well, why did you guys do that?
Well, the U.S. Marshal was killed, wasn't he?
I heard that they shot the dog first and the kid. Anyway, it sounds from all...
I agree with you. I mean, it was tragedy on both sides. It was terrible. And
I just wonder about BATF. I've heard not that many good things.
I've heard. I know.
But at the same time, I know there's good or bad people in religion and there are good. And I could even be... I mean, you know... So it's not that it's just one organization or one agency. Obviously, you know, after hearing all this, you know, one becomes very concerned. Here we go with the same old stories we've seen and heard all the time, and the truth always gets buried. Does one really get an opportunity to speak out and to try to defend themselves? I've seen, I don't know if you have, but I've seen in a court of law many times judges cut off someone that was trying to speak to bring out information.
I don't disagree with you, but I've also seen the other side where judges
rare and few between.
Well, they're forced the truth, and they want the truth.
To a meeting where a priest was leading out, my dad was asking something. I mean, I'm raised as an Adventist, but then in high school, I got away from it. I wanted to try.
In the last few days, and you've been straight, and through this straight, and I just want to tell you that I appreciate that. I really do. I always wonder what some of those churches do with that money, don't you?
Well, yeah. Well, all these churches are worth billions of dollars.
They buy a bunch of gold statues and.
Well, that's some of them. You know, like the Eastern Orthodox companies, where say something like there's some of the Protestants, the Adventists, for instance, which I was part of, have billions of dollars from tithes and offerings that they put into money orders, into the stock market, and so forth.
I'll tell you, there's some people. That's right.
Well, of course it isn't. Of course it isn't.
I mean, there's some...
But anyway,
see,
what I was saying, though, is how I finally got involved in such raising questions they could not answer. Even when they kicked me out, the very day they did, all I wanted to do was raise questions about some of these scriptures you do not know anything about. Or if you do, show me or tell me. They removed me, not because I was an adulterer, because I smoked or drank, because I didn't do those things anyway, or because I didn't go to church or whatever else. Because there were people in that church that did do all the things that were against their very views and anybody what they do unless you raise issues to do with something that is true, that the realities of God. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, my wife and I and many others were removed.
All right, you want me?
Pardon?
All right, I'm saying, and I'm working on two things.
Okay.
One is
bugged.
No, it's not going to be bugged. And those dogs.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, can you tell me for a fact ahead of time though that it won't be? I want you to tell me that, and then I won't even have a problem. You talking to me.
Right.
Whatever you tell me, I'm going to take.
Right.
Waiting to give you guys an opportunity to show your honesty and so forth.
We're not going to bug
in behalf of all the agents.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, good.
And if you feel differently, don't you?
And that you take our calls, but you'll call us a lot of times the phone. Whoever the guy is, I think it's Jamar or whatever the guy's name is, get it straight.
You guys asked us for a phone.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
For a week. I mean, we're not trying to trick you.
No, if you get back to me.
Yeah, and don't let those guys walk out because I don't want to, you know.
Bye.